Hello! So, I still had the original footage of this on my computer, and I figured it might be fun to do a little voiceover, talk about what I changed from that first draft initial painting to doing the second draft on larger paper. Larger paper was one of the reasons I wanted to do two drafts, and the added benefit was that I got to do this background again. The background actually came out really muddy the first time, so I was glad I had a chance to get to define the shapes of the buildings a bit better. You can definitely tell in that first one, I just didn't quite know what I was doing, so things got a little haphazard, they got a little blended together, but here I was definitely able to think about the silhouettes a little bit more, be more deliberate, and again, I had more space to work with them, which was very, very nice. In the original version, from the time-lapse, I actually used a bit of Payne's Gray in that middle plane, but as you can see, I didn't do that here. I honestly forgot that I'd done that in my first pass of this, my first draft of this, and I think it works fine without it. One of the things that I really noticed in that initial draft is that the buildings had a lot more bleed of color and it kind of looked muddy and messy, so I like this second version a lot more. I did keep the gray for the sky, and no, I don't know why my lighting keeps flashing blue and red. I can only imagine it was something with the sun, and I can't control the sun, sorry. Doing the second pass on this piece was quite fun. One of the things that I really enjoyed was getting to do those buildings twice because they're a lot crisper and more interesting in the second version as well. I didn't really change or edit anything with the character himself. He's pretty much the exact same from version to version, just obviously in this version I was working on a larger piece of paper to give myself a little bit more breathing room. I find that, I don't know, I have a default, not a default, I have a preferred size that I like to work at, and that initial size just felt too small when I was trying to put details into his face. Like here, I felt like I actually had enough room to add some variety of color to make his skin tone a little more natural and to add off the shadows. I did get a little rough with those shadows at the end, I noticed. It's a bit more, you can see the brush strokes a bit more than I usually like to let on the face. I tend to like the face and the neck to stay quite soft and not brush strokey. But, you know, what can you do? So, in the clothing didn't change too much from pass to pass. I got a little shot at refining some of those shadows. You can kind of see me futz with them here. In the initial one, I spent a really long time playing with those shadows and never quite got them how I wanted. And then here you can see me getting a little bit rough with the shading on his face. But whatever. It's fine, even though the lighting is diffused, and I would think that that would mean that the shading would need to be softer, if anything. So I'm just coming in and shading his hair a little bit. Every time I draw his hair, I definitely get better at defining the form of it, but it's still something that I find a little bit difficult and tricky. I was very happy with how I did the color on his pants this time around. You could see I put in that border of solid color, let it dry for just the right amount of time, and then came back and used just clear water to sort of connect the lines in the center. It gives that really nice fade into the middle, that natural fabric fade. I don't always do that, and I've noticed that I need to have the watercolors a very particular consistency and paint ratio to do that, but when the opportunity presents itself to do that, I like doing it. It creates a really nice effect. It's probably something I should be more cognizant of, but for now it's just kind of something I do on the fly when I say, ooh, this paint is the right consistency, I can do the thing. It's getting a little bit more detail on his hair. I always do a million passes on his hair just because watercolor dries so much lighter than when you put it down, and his hair is supposed to be black. It's all good. The shadows on his pants were not too off. They're a little bit weird for what his leg is actually supposed to be doing. They kind of create an illusion of motion, especially in his right leg, that's not quite matching up with where his feet are, but that's okay. I had a lot of trouble getting him to look grounded on the ledge, and I still don't think I did it as well as I could. I just sort of got to a point where I was willing to start painting and wanted to just get on with my life and stop futzing with his legs. But I'm adding some more nice shade to his hair here, some shadow shade, and a little bit to his jaw there. Pretty good definition. Taking the masking fluid off is always an ordeal. It always just wants to stick in the paper. I ended up using the back of my eyedropper because it had sort of a rubber grippy surface and could actually get into the little crevices of the paper. So the first time I did his little bandage thingies, I made them blue to kind of reflect the light that was all around him, but this time I made them an like off pink shade just because I wanted them to pop more. I don't know if you can actually tell a difference or not, but it was just sort of my attempt at, you know, refining something that I'd done in the original sketch that wasn't working, trying to get it to work better in the second draft of painting this. And then I'm just going with my pen, fixing up a couple little spots, darkening some areas, and that's it. So Past Me was kind enough to at least pull the old version into the frame, so I'm going to make it stop right here so that you can see all of the differences between the pieces, so you can see that the shading on the pants is a lot different. There's a lot more going on with it, for better or for worse. You know, that kind of, I've been playing with this too long, so I've maybe added more creases into the clothing than there strictly needs to be. As well as the background, like I was saying, the cityscape just looks so much messier, blotchier, bleedier, blended, muddier than the crisp, more defined shapes in the old version. The skin tone turned out a little bit too cold, I think, in the new version. It wasn't something that I noticed at the time because I was just sort of trying to replicate the color from memory, but I think it works because the piece does tend towards such a heavy monochrome anyway. I feel like I can get away with it, but I would have warmed up that skin tone just the slightest bit if maybe I'd noticed that sooner. I think those were the major things. You can't really tell the difference in the strips of fabric floating behind him, even though I was talking earlier about the differences in the shading. That's cool, that's cool. Anyway, this has been me talking about my art and the slight differences between the two pieces that I did. So thank you for listening to me ramble. I hope maybe it was interesting to you, and I might do this again if it was. Okay, bye!